All right. And Madam Chair, if you want to get us started whenever you're ready, we can go.
Okay, Candy. Well, that sounds like a plan. I want to welcome everybody to our final state gathering of the 2020 Democratic National Convention. I really hope you've been able to attend the many events and meetings. And the good news is, if you've missed something along the way that you wanted to attend, there's a good chance you can catch it on a replay. So check out our website for that. I also hope you've used the various gathering opportunities to meet new folks, whether via a chat room or a breakout room, and whether that folk is in Vermont or Vernonia. It's been a good place to meet some good new folk. I know it's not like being there, but our DPO staff has made magic happen technologically to help us both feel and be a little bit more connected. And I want to especially thank our platinum sponsors. These are the folks who are the financial rocks who ensure we can move mountains as a party. So thank you to U.S. Senator Ron Wyden, the great electricians of IBEW Local 48, IUPAT District Council 5, yay painters, Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, Pacific Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters, UFCW Local 555 for our essential workers, Oregon Federation of Nurses and Health Professionals, also obviously our essential workers, Morel Inc., International Association of Machinists, King Estate Winery, because we all need a drink, and NGP Van, well, because we all need to work on campaigns. Folks, we're embarking on the final stage of this campaign marathon. Hell, these last 3.5 years have been a torturous uphill marathon with rain pelting us in a 49-degree windstorm. But as we get closer to the end, we've got to dig even deeper into our own personal reserve of energy and charge through the home stretch. Each one of you in this delegation represents an important part of our large and expanding and diverse Oregon Democratic Party. Over 1 million strong, our million is represented by you, by us. And they are relying on us to ensure a thorough and complete Democratic victory this fall. More than any other time in the past, the members of this delegation, this 2020 delegation, you have taken on not just the honor of being a delegate to the National Convention, but the obligation to put on your virtual campaign shoes this weekend, next week, next month, and right through November 3rd. Let me be clear, we need you. We need you to help Shemia Fagan become the next Oregon Secretary of State, an essential office to regain in this census year. We need you to promote Pete DeFazio of CD4, who is facing a monsoon of national money coming in from the national GOP as they try to promote a very pretty boy with a very ugly Trumpian core. And we need you in the local races, helping your local Democratic candidates, because even if they face a 90-degree uphill battle, every Democratic vote, every new Democratic vote is worth it now and worth it for the future. One person not up for office this year, but sure to be on the campaign trail, is Ron Wyden. Senator Ron Wyden, our senior senator, is the quintessential champion for fairness. Whether advocating for seniors, which he did well before his elected career began, whether demanding healthcare access for all throughout the country, whether pushing for legislation that will make the internet a tool and utility that everyone in this country can use, he is relentless in his pursuit and pummeling of corporate and administrative bullies that offer regular folks crumbs while the fat cats line their pockets. He is equally apoplectic about the Trumpian attacks on vote by mail and the more recent assault on our postal service. He has spent the summer virtually barnstorming our country, sharing the message of vote by mail. And I was honored to serve on a panel with him too, and he is great, let me tell you. But now he and his other Democratic colleagues face a literal dismantling of our postal service in an audacious and hideously corrupt effort to skew the November election. But he's undaunted. And without further delay, I pass the baton to Senator Ron Wyden so he can tell you directly how we move forward. Senator, it's all you.
Hi, Casey. Actually, Senator Wyden's having a little bit of technical difficulties. If you want to chat for a couple more minutes about our great vote by mail work, that would be awesome.
Oh, well, I can do that. I see I kind of look like Kilroy there, so I'll adjust my screen. The vote by mail work we've been doing around the states, I've had the joy of being able to serve on several panels in, well, let's put it this way. I traveled to Vermont, I traveled to Washington, D.C., and I was on a national panel with Tom Perez advocating for vote by mail. Unfortunately, it must have been the Republicans listening to it, because look what's happened over the past few weeks. The attack on the postal service is just reprehensible, and obviously we're fighting it in every which way we can, whether in the House, whether our Democratic senators, and of course our Democratic attorneys general. They are seeking any way they can to stop the destruction. And while the fellow that's Trump's appointee says, "Oh, I'm not going to do any more," much of the damage is done. So the effort needs to now be made to restore what was. You take out those machines that can roll through 35,000 envelopes in an hour, and that's pretty destructive to our vote by mail system. So the senators are on that, our AGs are on that, and as our pundits have said and our representatives said, don't stop the pressure. It's been the citizen pressure that's helped move the message on it. I imagine the administration thought they were going to do all this hideous damage in the quiet of the night, and it became very apparent. And kudos and hats off to that Iowa county clerk not county clerk, the Iowa Postal Union representative that called bullshit on it and blew the whistle, and was the start of the national media that allowed everybody to know about it. And Ellen, would you like to say so? I see you're on the call. If you'd like to say something before Ron comes on, please be my guest.
Well, I will say this because Ron, our senator, called me the other morning, and he said, Ellen, I went to law school, right? Because he was actually a year ahead of me in law school. He said, I think we have standing to bring this lawsuit, and I want you to bring it. I said, Senator, you're on. And the next day, or maybe it was the day after that, we filed the lawsuit. So I really want to give the senator a lot of credit for giving me the kind of wherewithal to drop everything else and say, okay, we're going to do this. And I have fabulous Democratic Attorney General colleagues, one to the north, one to the south. We all got together. We filed 2 lawsuits, one in Pennsylvania, one in Washington. And we're not dropping these cases until we have injunctive terms in writing. A press release is not good enough for us, you guys. This is too important.
Great. Well, thank you for highlighting that, and we're glad you're on the case. Well, I understand that our senior senator is on the line, and we'll go right to him. And Senator, I've already bragged on you about your advocacy for vote by mail and how apoplectic you are about what's happening with USPS. So that's your lead in. So please take it away.
Sorry, we're still working on that tech issue, folks. Give us just another moment here.
You gotta love Zoom technology.
Yeah. I have a question for Ellen.
Oh, folks, we're not asking questions right now. Sorry.
Oh.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me now? This is Ron.
There he is.
You're on.
Wonderful. Well, listen, first of all, huge thanks to Casey for all the work she's done and that inflationary introduction. And we all want to express our appreciation to the DPO staff. Obviously, they have really come through on a unique convention, and we're so appreciative. Come up with a wonderful program like this by osmosis, and we're just so glad that they could put this together under challenging circumstances. I also want to take a minute to thank Dr. Rosa Colquitt and Travis Nelson for serving as our delegation co-chairs. They did a great job in making sure that our delegate votes were recorded on Tuesday night. And in a moment, I'm going to hand the virtual mic over to my wonderful friend, Sherrod Brown. But first, I'm just going to comment for a moment or two about the Oregon Way. You're all sipping your vote by mail, airmail cocktails. And as we talk about what's at stake this election and the unique challenges it brings with a global pandemic, I want to give a shout out to the Oregon way of voting. Vote by mail, and Donald Trump is not going to take it away from us. Our state was leaps and bounds ahead of the times, and I'm glad to see other states following suit. Because voting by mail, voting the Oregon way is safe, and it makes the ballot box more accessible. To say the last 4 years have been a heavy lift is an understatement. At every turn, Donald Trump and his bullies attack everything we hold dear, from Portland to Pendleton, Midford to Maupin, and all points in between. Yet every time Oregonians stood up and spoke out in defense of what's right, in defense of cherished values, in defense of our neighbors. Whether it was cruel and inhumane attacks on immigrant communities, Oregonians stood up. Whether it was attacks on health care, Oregonians stood up. Whether it was attacks on the planet, Oregonians stood up. And whether it was attacks on democracy itself, Oregonians stood up, and we went out and into communities across the state, and we stood and stood some more. You know why we did it? Because that's the Oregon way. I often say change doesn't happen in Washington, D.C., and then trickle down. It's almost always coming from the grassroots up. It happens when people demand it. And the work you all have done over the last 4 years, and this fight is culminating now in this critical moment. So it won us the House majority in 2018. Now in 2020, we're on the cusp of taking back the country. Obviously, we're not going to let up for a minute. We're doubling down on our efforts and keeping the pressure on so we can take back the White House, take back the Senate, defend the House majority. And here in Oregon, we have Democrats up and down the ballot who need our support. Senator Shemia Fagan is in the digital house today. She is going to be our next Secretary of State. We're all going to be behind her all this fall. Senator Fagan understands the importance of making sure every voice is heard and every ballot is counted. She strengthened the Oregon way of voting by mail with her important work to get paid postage. My friend Peter DeFazio is a competitive race. We're really going to step up to defend his record of fighting for working Oregonians. And of course, I've got to mention my partner, Senator Merkley. We've got to get him reelected as well. If we all continue to do our part, we're going to win. And when we win, we're going to reverse the damage done by Donald Trump and Senate Republicans. And we're going to go after bold progressive policies that we've been fighting for. And we're going to make the systemic changes that are so desperately needed. As the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, my responsibility will be taxes, health care, and Social Security. So I'm eager to roll up my sleeves. And a critical member of the Finance Committee is Senator Sherrod Brown. Working families have no better friend in public service than Senator Brown. He's a critical ally that serves on the Finance Committee with me. He's also the top Democrat on the Banking Committee, where he spends his days holding the big banks' feet to the fire and demanding fair and affordable housing for all families. As I said, he's a wonderful partner. He's been the one who's led the effort to make sure we have tough policies to stop the trade cheats from taking the jobs of working families. He's a sponsor of the Earned Income Tax Credit. He's a leader of the fight to stop evictions. Sherrod Brown is the real deal, and I am so grateful that even this way from cyberspace that I can make this introduction and let you know that we've got a real friend for Oregon values in Sherrod Brown. Let's hear from Sherrod now and give him a big virtual round of applause.
Cool. Ron, thank you. Thank you, Ron Wyden. It's an honor to be here with all of you. And I am just so envious of the progressive, so much. Ron said that so much that happens in our country really comes from the communities and states up to federal government. And I am so envious of how you do progressive politics in Oregon. I'm thrilled about your new Secretary of State, of Senator Fagan winning his Secretary of State's office in November, getting Jeff Merkley back. Peter DeFazio and I were in the House together, and he's a strong progressive voice. And You should know, I think you know the prize you have in Ron Wyden. He will be chair. We're going to win the Senate. We're going to beat Trump. We're even going to beat him in my state where he won by 8.5 points last election. But when winning the Senate means that Ron Wyden is going to be chairman of the Finance Committee, and that's the committee where he and I and our allies will expand the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit. Nothing is meant more for low income families to begin to move towards the middle class and actually be part of the middle class than a liberalized, if you will, than a more expansive earned income tax credit and child tax credit. He's the guy we count on there to get Medicare at 60 or 55 buy-in. That's the Finance Committee. Ron Wyden's the guy we'll count on. To write trade policy, we worked on an amendment that took a lousy Trump trade initiative and turned it into for the first time in history, a pro-worker initiative. That was Ron Wyden through the Finance Committee, even against the majority party, which didn't want to do it. It's issue after issue after issue on Medicare and Medicaid and taxes and all that. Ron mentioned the Banking Committee. It's called the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. When I'm chairman of it, when we win the Senate, it's going to be called the Housing and the Banking Committee because we don't do nearly enough in this state, in this country for housing. So I'm counting on Ron for that. I so appreciate Jeff Merkley and especially what he's done to prick the conscience of this nation at the border and kids in cages. And Jeff just on his own went to the border and really changed the debate in this country. So the two senators from Oregon, the team you have is extraordinary. And I wish I had a partner 1/10 as good in Ohio, in the Senate from Ohio that would do any of these things that you do. So I'm so grateful to Ron to be introduced by him, to be his partner, to learn from him on the Finance Committee, and to be his partner in so many issues that matter so much to our country. So thank you for that. The politics is really about whose side are you on, and we know whose side Trump's been on. Every time there's a fight, every time there's a fork in the road, it's either corporate interest or workers. What are you going to do? Trump always chooses corporations over workers. He sold this phony populism in Youngstown, Ohio, and around my state. A whole bunch of workers decided, even some union workers decided that Trump was on their side. We are disabusing them of that notion. We know that he might have won it by 8.5 points my state last time. That's not going to happen this time. We are absolutely competitive now. And I think we're going to win the state. We're going to win the state because we're going to talk about the dignity of work and contrast that to Trump's betrayal of workers. The dignity of work contrasted the betrayal of workers. We also will continue, Trump continues to deflect with his racist divisiveness and his racist talk, continues to deflect from his failures on the coronavirus. You know the number, I assume you've heard, 5% of the world's population in our country, yet we've been afflicted with almost 25% of the world's deaths. That's not because other countries have better doctors than Oregon or than Ohio. It's because other countries have better leaders than we have, better president, better prime minister than we have, and we've unfortunately paid the price. So it's and when I think about what happens next year, in America, throughout American history, we don't Democrats and progressives don't win that often, but when we win, we change the world and we change the country. And think back the big progressive victories we've had. I've done a lot of writing and reading about sort of Senate history and progressive politics. When Roosevelt won in the House and Senate in the 30s, we did Social Security, we did rural electrification, which mattered especially east of the Cascades, but mattered through your whole state. Back then, we did collective bargaining and what that still does to build a middle class in this country. When LBJ won, we got Medicare and Medicaid, we got voting rights and civil rights, we got the Equal Opportunities Act, which led to Head Start and other programs, immigration reform, Higher Ed Act, which led to Pell Grants, the Wilderness Act, which has been wonderful for your state and my state too, but especially Western states. So when Democrats win, we win big, and that's what 2020 is all about. I mean, when we come back and when we begin to, when the House and the Senate are gavelled order in January 2021, we're going to do big things. We're going to do consequential things. Winning this election. It's important not just that we win the Electoral College, of course, but it's important we win it in a big way. In my state, is going to play a role in that, because if we win my state where Trump won by 8 points, it means we'll win Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, we'll win Florida. We may win North Carolina, we'll win Arizona to add to the states, you and Washington and Hawaii and California and Nevada and New Mexico and then states in the East. In winning a consequential victory, winning an overwhelming victory, it will probably not make Republicans change who they are. They've become a racist party. A Republican retired congressman friend of mine said, Donald Trump is not an aberration or an outlier. He's an accelerator. And we know this is a party that continues to play to race and continues to distract the public from the real issues of economic justice. And we simply won't let them get away with that. Let me just close with a little story. Kamala Harris came to the Senate in 2016. I didn't know her well that first year. She was not on any committee with me, and so I didn't spend a lot of time with her. But in January of 2017, I sat down on the floor with her, and we were talking about, earlier in the week, we had both spoken in our Martin Luther King Day celebration. She, I believe, was in San Francisco that day. I was in Cleveland. And we talked about our speeches, and I told her that, she said, what did you talk about? And I said, well, I talked about Dr. King always talked about the dignity of work. And he understood what that meant. He talked about, he said, think of the street sweeper who sweeps streets the way that Michelangelo paints, with the same care and concern the way that Michelangelo paints and Beethoven writes poetry. And he said, when the street sweeper sweeps streets like that, the heavens will open up and God will say, my, there's a fine street sweeper. And Dr. King really understood the dignity of work that way. And so about a week later, Kamala comes up to me in the Senate floor and hands me a book called All Labor Has Dignity. It was a compilation of Dr. King's speeches from about 1958 until his assassination. And I think you all know he was assassinated fighting for some of the most exploited workers in our country, African-American workers who were sanitation workers in segregated Memphis. And that's, he was fighting for workers when he died. And that's that book that Kamala gave me, is 10 years of speeches that Dr. King gave to labor unions and to farm workers and to groups that simply weren't getting a fair shot in our society. And the beauty of Dr. King's language underscored the bringing together of civil rights and worker rights. And that's who we are as a country. This pandemic has been the great revealer. It's shown the racial disparities. It's shown the economic, the wealth inequality in this country. For the first time, white America is starting to understand it, and we will address it. We will address it because we will bring together worker rights and civil rights and human rights in a way that it means that in the Finance Committee, Ron Wyden will lead us on expanding the earned income tax credit, and the child tax credit means that he will lead on trade policy to help workers worldwide and in the U.S. It means he will lead on what we need to do on Medicare, to expand Medicare so people can buy Medicare earlier and get better insurance than they might have if they're 59 years old in the private sector. So all of that comes together because when you love your country, you fight for the people who make it work. That's what your delegation does. We need more Jeff Merkley's and more Ron Wyden's in the U.S. Senate. We're going to get a number of new progressives coming into the Senate. And it means in January, hold our feet to the fire, make President Biden, Vice President Harris, Senators Wyden and Merkley and me, make us do what we said we'll do to address the great moral issues of climate change and income inequality and racial disparities. We do that, we will benefit for decades around in our country. So join us as we continue to work to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, re-elect Jeff Merkley and Peter DeFazio, and we will change this country finally. So thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you for being a champion for the people and for always standing with workers.
Always. Thank you. Thanks. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. All right, so I get the pleasure of introducing what am I talking about? The best Attorney General in the entire country, Ellen Rosenblum. Ellen has spent most of her life serving and protecting the people of Oregon. As a federal prosecutor, a judge, and now our Attorney General, the first woman to hold this post in our state's history, As the people's attorney, Ellen has prioritized defending our rights, advocating for Oregon's most vulnerable, and holding powerful actors accountable. Since the first day of the Trump presidency, Ellen has stood up to his administration time and time again to defend the rights of Oregonians. She has taken more than 180 environmental actions against the administration so far to protect our air, water, and our future, and has consistently taken action in suits to defend Roe versus Wade and access to reproductive health care against extremist attacks. While Ellen has always been dedicated to serving Oregonians, progressive attorney generals across the country look to her leadership as co-chair of the National Democratic Attorney General Association. Please give a warm virtual welcome to my friend, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Travis. What an honor to get to follow two great senators. Oh my goodness. And thank you, Travis, for that kind introduction and for your work for the DPO this year and previous years. And thank you to everyone for coming tonight. It is just so great to be here with such a wonderful team. And to you, Rosa, Dr. Colquitt, thank you and Travis for being our leaders, our co-chairs of this delegation. You are phenomenal. I was so proud on Tuesday night. You're just the best. I am honored to be on the ticket this year. Yes, I'm up for election. Some people sort of forget that. I think they think maybe I don't have to run, but I do. And that's okay, because I have a great campaign team and we can talk about that. But the most important thing is all the great leaders that I have to work with, to run beside. I'm running with basically the same motivations I've held for years: to hold bad actors accountable, to defend Oregonians' rights and well-being, and to protect Oregon's most vulnerable. I believe the state attorney general can help make Oregon a more just, inclusive state in which everyone can thrive. And I've always strived to leave that footprint while in office. So I'm really excited to get that opportunity. But everyone here knows that the stakes could hardly be higher this year. Americans and Oregonians alike face greater challenges than we've ever seen, some that have arisen in just the last few weeks, and others as old as our state's history. And I feel an immense responsibility to fight on behalf of Oregonians for the next 4 years. Do you have my word? I will not waver on my goals or principles as we move forward. Oregonians deserve access to affordable, comprehensive reproductive care. And I am leading the fight against the Trump administration's Title X gag rule. And I will continue to challenge Trump on any politician for that matter who opposes our basic reproductive rights. Oregonians deserve clean air and water and a future in which our kids and our grandkids can enjoy our state's natural beauty and resources. I will defend bedrock environmental protections from attacks pushed by polluters, and work to improve environmental justice for all and defend Oregon's progress on combating climate change. Yes, we can do that. That will be absolutely our top priority over the next 4 years when it comes to environmental justice. Oregonians deserve to live free from prejudice and hate, and I'll keep fighting hate crimes and discrimination. I will never stop searching for better ways to support victims and survivors of despicable hate crimes and incidents of bias that can be just as hurtful. And Oregonians deserve a criminal justice system that serves and protects everyone equally. I will keep working to end police profiling, as I have been working on. I will advocate accountability for law enforcement and ensure access to justice for all. Today, I actually completed a series of 11 community conversations to hear from communities impacted by inequity. Oregonians telling us about their experiences with institutional racism and implicit bias. We'll have a report for you shortly about these conversations that were so important. I'm trying to be a really good listener. I intend to continue challenging the Trump administration. You know I know where to find the courthouse, right? We're going to address the lasting damage that it has caused. It may take a while to do that. So even when President Biden is ensconced in the Oval Office in November, we will need to sustain challenges to Trump's dangerous extremist legacy that will outlast his presidency. It's going to take a while to undo all this damage. On top of the unlawful policies the Trump administration has enacted and the important ones that he's repealed or gutted, he dramatically, and this is so hard for me to say, but you know, he has dramatically reshaped our nation's courts, and the legal fights for our basic rights could not be more complicated, longer, and more challenging than ever before. When we have Biden and Harris, and by the way, I got to serve with Kamala Harris as attorneys general for 4 years before she moved over to the Senate. And oh my gosh, I just couldn't be more thrilled. But when we have them in the White House, I can then stop suing the president, and we can all start working with Washington for a change to speed up the path to economic recovery and ensure Oregon comes out of the pandemic and the uprisings for racial justice stronger. This work means little, though, without the support of Democratic leadership in offices throughout Oregon. It's so important that we coordinate so that Democrats win up and down the ballot to bring the progress to Oregon that the people of our state deserve. We will only ever be able to provide the support that Oregonians need and bring the change they are demanding if we do have a strong coalition. So with the team that we have at tonight's happy hour, take a sip, I couldn't be more confident about our path to victory over the next couple of months. Some of you are running on impressive records to continue your commitment to public service. Some have the experience to take on new leadership roles, and some of you are taking the bold step to represent your communities and run for office for the very first time. And all of you have what it takes to make Oregon a better and more inclusive, more equitable place next year for everyone in our state. I also know you all have what it takes to win in November. So no matter what happens, we're going to find ways to engage with as many people as possible across our state to get word out about what it is we're fighting for. And I have no doubt that Oregonians will be eager to join the team, and I'm excited to be celebrating victory with all of you in just a few weeks. Thanks for having me at the happy hour tonight, and I look forward to the rest of our wonderful speakers.
Thank you. Yeah. I wish we were all clapping. Hi, Ellen. This is Rosa. How you doing? Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to blow you a kiss too. Thank you for those encouraging, informative, emphatic words. We're all anxious and we can hardly wait for you to be reelected. And Travis was right when he called you a friend. I haven't forgotten that wonderful ad that we recorded in your kitchen. That was so much fun in your remodeled kitchen. And when I say that you are my friend, I can't tell the folks in all the reasons and all the ways that I know, but you have shown yourself to be a friend so many times. I am so grateful to you. And I welcome your next term as Attorney General. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Rose.
And now I get to introduce Senator Shemia Fagan. First, I would like to thank Annie Ellison in helping me with the right words and the right spirit to introduce a woman that I am confident will be our next Secretary of State. And I do think introductions are important. I think that folks work very hard to go from whatever station they're in life. They work very hard to get to the next one. And I know that Shamia has done exactly that. Senator Shemia Fagan is a working mom and civil rights attorney who grew up in rural Eastern Oregon. Shemia's dad was a single parent who struggled to keep 3 kids housed and fed, while her mom battled addiction and homelessness in Portland. The senator credits her Oregon public school educators for giving her the confidence and the drive to put herself through college and law school. Shortly after graduating from Lewis and Clark Law School, Shemia was elected to the David Douglas School Board and began her public service, giving back to the Oregonians, the very people who stood up for her. On the school board and later in the Oregon House and Senate, she developed a reputation for her, and I quote, no nonsense style of shaking up the status quo while fighting for families like hers. On voting rights, Senator Fagan has been a champion, helping shepherd Oregon's first in the nation automatic voter registration and expanding Oregon's vote by mail with prepaid postage. At a time when voting by mail is under attack from Donald Trump, Shamia is running for Secretary of State because it's never been more important to lead the fight for protecting and expanding the fundamental right to vote in Oregon. Please, everybody, join me in welcoming Shamia to our closing night happy hour. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Colquitt, thank you. Whoever helped you introduce me, I feel like I don't have much more to say. That was super helpful. Well, hey, Democrats, it is so exciting. I don't know about you, but I am going to be toggling between the DNC and the Blazers-Laker playoff game 4 or 2 tonight to make sure that we win in both, that Joe Biden wins by making a great, incredible case to the American people, and that the Blazers win, of course, as well. Thanks, Rosa, for that beautiful introduction. I have been serving in multiple offices here in Oregon since 2011. I unseated a 25-year incumbent to join the David Douglas School Board in 2011. In 2012, I unseated a Republican incumbent in a swing district 2 months after having my first baby. In 2014, I defended my seat against a well-funded Republican challenger. And in 2018, I unseated a Democratic incumbent to join the Oregon State Senate. And then just recently in May, I had a very slim victory over 2 extraordinary candidates and colleagues in the Democratic primary for Secretary of State. So I'm very happy to be here before you, and running for office is no new thing for me. But the most important thing that's happened over the course of all of those campaigns is the amount of people that I've interacted with, particularly in those last 5 days, when people have their ballots, when they're filling out their ballots, when they're giving you their ballots. And there's a lot of stories, but one in particular sticks out during this particular time. And that was in my 2018 Senate race. A middle-aged couple who was living in their car handed a volunteer 2 ballots. And they said, give these to Shemia and tell her that she's our hope. So when I think about voter suppression that is happening all across the country, and now with the USPS showdowns, they're even trying to do it right here in Oregon. When I think about suppressing the vote, it's technical, right? It's deadlines and ballot locations and USPS rules, but ultimately, suppressing the vote is suppressing hope. It is suppressing hope for people who know they can't buy their way out of their circumstances. They can't use connections to get their way out of their circumstances, but they believe that in a democracy, they can vote for a better future. And it is that type of hope that has stood with me and really animated part of my whole life. As many of you know, as Rosa mentioned, my mom battled homelessness and addiction for most of my life. I once went to visit her. I know many of you have heard me tell this story, visiting her in Portland from where I lived in Wasco County. And she was living under somebody's porch, and not like in a basement under their porch. Like literally we had to crawl on our hands and knees to go sit with her on a sleeping bag under the porch. But when she died, she'd been clean for almost 6 years. She died in 2014. And she'd been clean for almost 6 years and living in the first house she ever owned, a little bungalow out in Umatilla County. And the minister captured my mom's journey perfectly, but also really captured the next phase of my life in public service. The minister said, Trish reached the place of an ordinary life, a job and a house and a dog. But it didn't just happen to her. She fought for it with everything she had in her. And it is that fight that has animated my service on the school board, in the state legislature, and that takes me to the fight for Secretary of State. I remember giving my dad my ballot the first time I voted in 2004. My dad, a conservative Republican who was dropping my ballot off at a drop box in Wasco County. And I knew that on my ballot was a vote for John Kerry, and on his ballot was a vote for George Bush. And on my ballot was a vote for Ted Kulingowski, and on his ballot was a vote for Kevin Mannix. And on my ballot was a no vote on Measure 36, and on his ballot was a yes vote on Measure 36. But I remember that feeling of saying, hey, look, no matter how I'm voting, this is my voice and this is my hope. And thankfully, he did turn in my ballot that year. So I know what it's like for folks to need to have a fair election system, regardless of how they're voting or who they're voting for. I want to make damn sure that people that want to vote against Shemia Fagan have a fair and safe and secure way to do it, because I know what it feels like to give somebody my ballot knowing that it didn't say the same thing as their ballot. And as many of you know, I'm running against Kim Thatcher this fall. I know Kim from the state legislature, and I think she would probably proudly classify herself as one of the most conservative Republicans in the Oregon State Senate. I've spent my time in the legislature knocking down barriers to voting with, as Rosa mentioned, automatic voter registration, national popular vote, prepaid postage. My Republican opponent, Kim Thatcher, has rejected those efforts, and she really has joined Trump's attacks on vote by mail and repeated his lies about voter fraud. Voter fraud is their big, scary Trojan horse, and all they really want to do is suppress some people's votes, to keep some people from voting. But I like to do, when we talk about voter fraud, I like to kind of put it in perspective, and I can see, I'm in the gallery view, so I can see a number of faces. How many of you drink coffee in the morning? Nice morning cup of Joe. I see a lot of hands in the air. Great. Well, vote by mail is safer than your morning cup of coffee, because vote by mail has a percentage of 0.000 X number voter ballots that are concerning. Very, very, way less than 1%. Up to 5% of your coffee beans can have mold on them under the FDA. So enjoy your morning coffee and enjoy vote by mail. How many of you eat chocolate? Yeah, a lot of people. Okay, vote by mail is safer than eating chocolate, because up to 1% of cocoa beans are allowed to have insect bug parts. And how many practice safe sex? Lots of hands should be going up, because safe sex, the best birth control, is 99.7% effective. Guess what? Vote by mail is safer than safe sex. So I want Oregonians to keep drinking coffee, keep eating chocolate, keep having safe sex, and keep voting by mail. So if defending our vote by mail system isn't enough of a reason to make sure we prioritize this race this year, I want to paint a scenario for you that is terrifying and extraordinarily likely if Kim Thatcher becomes our next Secretary of State. Many of you watched 5 times over the past 2 years when the Republicans walked out of the legislature and shut down the entire government. First, it was over funding for our schools and gun safety. Next, it became over climate change. And they can shut down the process because even in the super minority, they can deny us a quorum, meaning the number of people that we need just to show up to do business. I can guarantee you, with redistricting coming up next year, they will most definitely walk out and shut down the legislature, making sure that Republican Secretary of State Kim Thatcher gets to draw the district lines for both the Oregon legislature and the United States Congress, including the additional congressional seat that Oregon expects to pick up. They will most definitely walk out if they can trust that Kim Thatcher is going to get to draw those lines. Under the Oregon Constitution, the legislature has until June 30th to complete redistricting. If they don't do it by then, it goes to the Secretary of State. And if Kim Thatcher is the Secretary of State, they're going to walk out over, the Student Success Act and gun safety and climate change. They will sure as hell walk out over making sure that Kim Thatcher gets to make Oregon the next Wisconsin, where the majority of people who vote in the legislative races vote for Democrats in Wisconsin, and yet the Republicans hold the majority of legislative seats. So I know that we are a big group of Democrats, and we have a wide range of views, and we're not in any organized political party, of course, because we're Democrats. So whether you like me or not, one reason that we have to make sure that we vote, and we vote down ticket, and we vote this race, I want to be our next Secretary of State for a number of reasons, but we have to make sure that we don't allow Kim Thatcher the Republicans to walk out of the session, dominate the 2021 session, and allow Kim Thatcher to unilaterally draw the redistricting lines for the next decade here in Oregon. So I always tell people that are reluctant about voting, I say, look, I voted my whole life since 2004. I skipped the 2000 election, which might be good because I would have voted for George Bush as a young Republican who grew up in an evangelical household in Wasco County. So save me having ever voted for Bush. But I voted, and sometimes voting is a love letter, and sometimes it's a chess move, and sometimes it's taking out the trash. But one way or the other, we have to vote regardless of our motivation and how we feel, because we have to make sure that we put the people in there that are going to make the policies that we agree with. So I appreciate you. I know that we're going to do the work to make sure that we win up and down the ballot. And I could not be more thrilled with the opportunity to be your next Secretary of State here in Oregon.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Shemia. You now have me wanting to go and figure out how many things are safer than safe sex. So thank you. Thank you for being a champion for the people. I've got a real personal story with Shemia where there was somebody who I knew that was facing a discrimination claim, and Shemia came to bat for them when they were in need. And I will forever think of her when I think of that situation. And it ended up working out for that person involved. So thank you, Shemia. Thank you for fighting for the people. And we're with you in your Secretary of State race. All right. Our next person that I need to introduce is State Treasurer Tobias Read. Tobias Read knows that financial empowerment, wise investments, and sound management are foundational to the quality of life and economic opportunities for Oregonians, and key for the long-term vitality of our state. As State Treasurer, he has been implementing the first in the nation state-based retirement savings program, Oregon Saves, to help put more Oregonians on the path to a secure financial future. The treasurer sits on the Oregon Investment Council and State Land Board and oversees public investing, banking, bonding, and financial empowerment programs. Those include the Oregon College Savings Plan and the ABLE Savings Plan, which allows families to save for higher education, job training, and disability-related expenses. Delegates, please welcome Oregon Treasurer Tobias Read.
Thank you, Travis, for that very kind introduction. I'm excited to see all of you tonight. Of course, I wish that we were in the same room together, but we're doing really well in these COVID times, and I'm impressed at how smoothly this unconventional convention is running. I'm excited to be on the ballot with Senator Fagan and General Rosenblum and all the rest of the Democrats. And I feel really strongly that what we need in Oregon these days is a shared prosperity agenda. We need to be explicit about creating more opportunities for Oregonians, about making those opportunities fair, and about building our shared resilience. We got to give Oregon families the tools they need to achieve the financial security that they need and deserve. And I hope you are as proud as I am of Oregon for being the first state in the country to operate an opt-out retirement savings plan. It was called Oregon Saves, as Travis mentioned. We just celebrated the 3rd anniversary, and already we've got 70,000 people who have funded IRAs. That's making a difference right now in these COVID times. We're doing new things in college savings plans as well, helping that program work for people all across Oregon at every income level so they can have big educational dreams and achieve them. And we've got another really important tool that we get to use at a time like this. And this is one of those places where being a numbers guy, as I am sometimes accused of being, is really helpful. We have capacity to issue debt for responsible things. We've got to be careful with it, of course. But when unemployment is this high and interest rates are this low, we can do a whole lot of good because we've got loads of deferred maintenance and repairs to do, and we can invest on very attractive terms in the kind of work that creates needed employment in the short term and needed economic capacity over the long run. The immediate future is challenging. There's no getting around that. But in order to build the Oregon we want for the long run, we get to think beyond the short term. And so I'm not ignoring the challenges that are right in front of us. I'm realistic about it, but I'm also optimistic and hopeful. I feel that way because I see those challenges as opportunities as well. We've got the chance to rebuild Oregon. And as our nominee says, to build back better. We can imagine an Oregon as we want it. And I think and hope that we will remember our common aspirations and not only our opportunity, but our responsibility to help each other achieve them. That's the Oregon way. And as this the theme tonight, when we embrace the Oregon way, we lead the way for the rest of the country. So I really appreciate being part of this virtual happy hour. I'm excited about the next 75 days. And as the Attorney General said, we all get to celebrate together, whether virtually or physically, on November 3rd. And I look forward to lots more work together with all of you. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, State Treasurer Read, for those words and for that info. And we look forward to the good work that you're going to be doing in the future. We thank you for all that you have done, and we look forward to the good work that you're going to be doing in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's all make sure we give him a virtual hand. Very much appreciated. I see Travis giving you one, Ellen is. So Candy, what's next on the show?
Well, Rosa, I think you've got some big words to share with some folks about our Vice President Biden.
That's exactly what I thought. I'm trying to adjust my screen a little. My assignment is to talk about the excitement of this moment and VP Biden's speech. And what I want to tell you is that I thought about this a lot today because I have felt some emotion, and I can best describe the excitement of this moment that we finally come down to on the eve of VP Biden's acceptance speech as a moment of simple joy and relief. Oh, what a primary race we had, not just here in Oregon, but what a primary race we had nationally. So tonight, at this moment, the emotions that I'm feeling are those of joy and relief. Dr. King had this to say about leadership. A genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. With a 40-year political career, there's one thing that has stood out about Joe Biden among friends and detractors alike, and that is his ability to mold consensus. I believe this nation is badly in need of this kind of leader. Now, my support for candidate Biden began on April 25, 2019, when he announced his presidential candidacy. On the day of his official launch, I downloaded the Team Joe app and pledged my full support for his nomination, signed on as a volunteer and a monthly donor. From April 2019 to the present, my 16-month journey to support Joe Biden for president has never wavered. Even in the early primary days of making campaign calls to Iowa and New Hampshire, when I was experiencing little success with reaching voters and even less success, admittedly, to those whom I actually spoke. But yet I was singularly focused on the candidate I believed had the best national chance of defeating Trump and removing him from his perch in the Oval Office. And that was very, very important to me. I focus on the policy agenda, as do all of us who are so involved in politics, but I looked for the leader who I thought could remove the person who, as President Obama has said, is trying to destroy our democracy. I held steady and lived through what seemed like an endless wait for South Carolina, as my grad school friend in Columbia encouraged me weekly. Don't cry, South Carolina is coming, South Carolina is coming. It was almost like Paul Revere is coming. And in April of 2020, in collaboration with the National Women for Biden, I launched the Oregon Women for Biden 2020 Facebook page, and I also accepted the responsibility to be the online communication advisor for the Women for Biden Daily Digest Info. And that is quite a chore. I accepted the responsibility, and I later learned that I had really gotten myself into one of these chores that you have to get up for at 7 in the morning, read everything before you could communicate to Oregon. And I will be doing that job, that volunteer job, for the next 75 days, and happy to do it. So here I am, here we are on the eve of VP Biden's acceptance speech. I'm thankful and emotional, coming to the end of a long primary journey in which I often felt isolated and lonely. And so I'd start calling up people, sometimes at the wrong hour of the night. But above all else, what this moment means to me as a long-term, from day one, Joe Biden supporter, is that over the next 75 days, we have the opportunity to work hard, to win it all for America, to win it all for Oregon, up and down the ballot. And in the excitement of this moment, I'd like to ask everybody on this Zoom to commit to win it all. This is the chance we have. Let's commit to win it all. Thank you, everybody. So I think Travis is in there somewhere.
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. Wow. Thank you for those words, Rosa. You know, wow, this 2020, God, I mean, this has been quite a year already, hasn't it, folks? This whole experience for me was substantially different than what I experienced in 2016. And although it's been different than past conventions, it's been special in its own unique way all the same. So here we are. It's the last night. Joe Biden's going to give his speech. He is our nominee. And I just want to communicate to all of you how important it is for this not to be the last thing you do. We've got folks who are running in local races who need your help. We've got Shemia Fagan, who's running for Secretary of State, as well as others who are running in the legislature who need your support. We've got Ellen, who's running for re-election. And in addition to that, we've got the Senate that we need to flip nationally. We need a supermajority here in Oregon, but if we are to get Joe Biden in office, we are going to need a Democratic Senate to get those things done that we all desire to get done, whether that's the Green New Deal or an expansion of healthcare. We all need to work hard to push the candidates that we need to win over the finish line. And you can be a part of that by phone banking. The DPO will be running several phone banks. So if you have any desire to do that, please feel free to reach out to DPO staff. You can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help make those connections. If you are not a PCP, become a PCP. If you are not a member or active in your county party, please seek out your county party, get engaged, get active. County parties do a lot to get candidates elected up and down the ballot. And if you are looking for ways to help, your county party is a great way to start. The DPO also has a whole host of caucuses for you to join that do work in their communities and do work to get candidates elected. You can go to dpo.org and take a look at caucuses for more information. So I just want to end my remarks by saying it's been a wonderful experience being co-chair of the delegation. And I want to again express my thanks to Casey Hansen, the DPO staff, and Senators Merkley and Senators Wyden for stepping back to allow Rosa and I to step up. So thank you all for being delegates. Thank you for being leaders in your community. And I'll see you on the road to November.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for those great words, Travis. Sorry for the hitch and unmuting myself there. Candy, am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, you can hear me. All right. Boxes keep flipping about on me here. You know what a technology wizard I am. So anyway, we are about to make it real easy for you to sign up and volunteer, like Travis mentioned. I wanted to mention first and foremost our coordinated campaign kickoff this Sunday, August 23rd. Please go to dpo.org/kickoff and you can check it out, and we would love to have you there. Please copy this link. Please use this link. Please share this link. I want to give a huge thank you to our delegation co-chairs, Rosa and Travis. They made it look easy, but they worked really hard and did an exemplary job in leading and representing the Oregon delegation. They did a ton of virtual and physical hopping around over this last week. Another huge thanks to our officers, vice chairs and busy delegation members, Michelle Risher and Pete Lee. These two are among the unsung heroes that make change happen by their tremendous contributions and zealous efforts of their everyday advocacy. Hats off also to our 3 DNC members, Tanya Shively, Travis Nelson, and Matt Keating. They're in the final months of their 4-year DNC terms, and they've represented Oregon proudly every month and every week since their election. Finally, to our recording secretary, Eileen Kiley, and treasurer, Eddie Morales, both candidates for public office. Great shout out to them. Eileen is our nominee in Senate District 17 in the Bend Sun River area, and Eddie just recently announced his candidacy for Gresham mayor. That's phenomenal, and he already represents me as city councilor, so one more step, buddy. In any convention, the staff puts in about 16 to 18-hour days. At least in this convention, they can sleep in their own beds, but it's no different in terms of their time commitment. From organizing to the technology to the media, our staff, every single one of them, is why this convention experience could happen. Finally, thank you for being part of this historic moment and for being part of the transformation that will begin in 2021. We have no choice but to win in November. We can leave nothing on the table, and President Obama put it to us and the nation directly as he described the dire consequences of a continued authoritarian influence in the administrative offices. We need to end an administration that sends stormtroopers into Portland to provoke violence for a vote for a photo op. We need to end an administration that is in the courts right now trying to rip healthcare away from 20 million plus Americans. We need to end an administration that has committed genocide against its own country, particularly against folks of color, as it actually ignored the pandemic that has clouded our lives for 6 months and will continue to do so well into the future. And we need to end permanently the elected terms of the Republican sycophants who have enabled Trump, his policies, and his horrific reign. Yeah, we have no choice but to win this November, but I am totally confident that with all of you, from whatever corner state you're in, from whatever corner of the party you hail from, we will win. And then in 2021, we will begin the state, the national, and the global transformational changes that need to happen that will begin a sustainable framework for our future, for a just society, and for a surviving planet. And I want to close with something that I put in our brochure, to quote our beloved late Congressman John Lewis. Democracy is not a state. It is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we call the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself. You are the change agents that will bring that change. Please go for it. Let's get to it. Thank you, everybody. See you down the road.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We are going to sign off now, but we hope you'll watch the end of the program tonight.